What's going on, guys? This is Rob, and if you're enjoying the content that I'm uploading onto my channel, then feel free to subscribe, and you can also offer suggestions on topics and characters and storylines and whatnot that we can have discussions on later on in this channel.
Okay, so we are here at the conclusion of Fall of the Hulks, and I gotta tell you guys, as much as I love the Hulk, it might be time for a break, because this is, like I said in the last video, this will be the last Hulk video that I do until after Christmas. But on Sunday, The Walking Dead comes back. A lot of people said that I was ignoring questions about what happened to The Walking Dead. I posted a comment in a video and pinned it, telling you guys The Walking Dead was coming back, so I'm not sure why people think that I'm ignoring comments on that. But in any event, so the Fall of the Hulk's conclusion actually comes from two different sides. It comes from Red Hulk, and it comes from Bruce Banner. And it's really cool because we get to see both of these events from two different perspectives. They're both taking place at the exact same time. But what this does is it kind of wraps back around and it makes sense of everything, because in a lot of ways, Jeff Loeb and Greg Pak were kind of leaving us to try to figure things out as they were going along, to try to understand how all this came together. And so what this will do is essentially make sense of how it is, or why it is, that Bruce Banner believes that Betty Ross is alive. Because remember, the only indication that he has is her face. He saw her face. But it doesn't seem like on the surface that would be enough to believe that she's alive. It's like, well, that's cool, but what led us to think, or what led Banner to think that it wasn't like, somebody manipulating his mind or casting an illusion? What made him believe that it's absolutely true? And so what we do is we actually start off with about 2 weeks before all of this happened, or at least 2 weeks before the last video that we did, and we basically pick up with Red Hulk meeting up with Bruce Banner. Now, the funny thing about this, and this is not a huge deal, it has nothing to do with the story, but it's something that I wanted to point out. Jeff Loeb actually makes a joke about Jonathan and Martha Kent. There's a couple leaving Sam's diner, and the woman's named Martha and the guy's named Jonathan. Now, the reason why Jeff Loeb did this, I imagine, is because he wrote Batman Superman for a while, or Superman Batman, I can't remember, but the team up between the two, the really popular comic that did super well before Flashpoint, he wrote that for about 2 years, I think, and I think before that, he ended up writing Superman for a little while. I can't remember off the top of my head. I'm not wildly familiar with Jeff Loeb's writing outside of Marvel, but the meeting between the two is significantly important, because of course, Bruce Banner was prepared. He always has devices on him. For example, he has a shield that absorbs gamma radiation to power the shield so he can withstand the attack of a Hulk, but he also has alerts that make him aware of whenever a Hulk is coming upon him, because all Hulks are powered by gamma radiation. The only exception to that is Cosmic Hulk, which is basically a cybernetic, version of the Incredible Hulk that's powered by cosmic radiation. And so because of the fact that Bruce Banner has this alert system, he knew Red Hulk was coming. But as soon as Red Hulk gets in there, Banner's like, why haven't you killed me yet? And why shouldn't I kill you? And Red Hulk says, because Betty Ross is alive. Now, again, this is huge for Bruce Banner. The possibility of Betty being alive can change everything. And so because of this, he basically frees Red Hulk, and the two of them begin to have a conversation. Now, the reason why this is so important is because while we don't see it, what happens here is Red Hulk basically reveals his identity to Bruce Banner. He runs over the story of how it was that he was created. He basically spills all the beans behind his existence. And because of the fact that this was done, because of the fact that Red Hulk powered down and showed Bruce Banner who he was, Bruce Banner believed him 100%. Now again, we still don't know who Red Hulk is, and this shows you guys, Jeff Loeb drew this out for 2 years, trying to get people to try to figure out who it was that Red Hulk was, and it was a highly anticipated thing. It actually starts off, I think, in the beginning of World War Hulks, I'm pretty sure. But Red Hulk and Banner are basically coming to the realization of what it is that's going on with the intelligentsia. Remember, Banner had already figured this out, but the idea was that they had to find out where the intelligentsia was, they had to find out where She-Hulk was, and they had to figure out how deep all this went. And so what this does is actually transition to the Virginia countryside and pick up with Red Hulk effectively locating the helicarrier of the intelligentsia, taking a duffel bag with him, and basically breaking in. And so this is actually really kind of cool, because this is basically the first part of the plan. Red Hulk went first, and then Bruce Banner came second. But when Red Hulk gets in there, the first person he actually comes across is Awesome Android. Now, a lot of people don't know about Awesome Android or Awesome Andy. A lot of people don't know who he is. He's one of like maybe 10 or 15 people who've been able to lift Thor's hammer. The reason why Awesome Andy can do this is because he's able to copy abilities through physical touch. And so once he actually punctures the skin of Red Hulk, he can basically copy his abilities. Now, in a lot of ways, he doesn't really need to, just because of the fact that Awesome Andy, he's kind of malleable, but kind of not, but he's very capable in terms of his physical strength. Now, remember, it's only one person at a time. And so while he was able to lift Thor's hammer, once he went and touched somebody else, that ability went away. And so because of that, he had to actually go back and touch Thor again if he wanted to lift his hammer again. The whole idea here is that Awesome Andy was basically a creation of the Mad Thinker, a guy who created Awesome Android for the purpose of taking out the Fantastic Four by being able to mimic their abilities. abilities. The issue is that while Red Hulk is able to subdue Awesome Andy, of course he's attacked by MODOK. MODOK begins to lay into him, and again, this is all effectively a distraction. Now, the true power of Cosmic Hulk comes into play when he goes against Red Hulk. Now, this is kind of the crazy thing, because we don't have a definitive standard here. All we have is what's going on right now. When it comes to all the iterations of the Hulk that exist at this moment, Red Hulk, Scar, She-Hulk, Red She-Hulk, Abomination, or I guess A-Bomb, Red Hulk is the strongest of them all, but Cosmic Hulk is stronger than he is. Now, the reason for this is simple. Cosmic Hulk is powered by the power cosmic, and so because of this, it's literally like if the Silver Surfer were an android and fighting Red Hulk, but instead of having the ability to fly and instead of being able to travel through time and control the molecular structure of matter, all that power was just channeled into super strength. That's basically how Cyborg Hulk works. Now, from here, it's literally everyone descending on the helicarrier, and it's actually really cool. I mean, when I say everyone, I mean everyone. The Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, the whole 9 yards, they're all there, because keep in mind, all of them have members of their teams that have been taken by the Intelligentsia. Storm's there because Beast, Hank McCoy, and T'Challa were taken. The X-Men are there because, you know, of course, Hank McCoy was taken. The Avengers are there because Hank Pym was taken. The Fantastic Four are there because Reed was taken, and everybody needs to rescue Doctor Doom because he's Doctor Doom, and Marvel would be a terrible place if Doctor Doom did not exist. So, what we get is actually this explanation of how all this came into existence in the first place. That is to say, how it is that Red Hulk was made, how it is that Red She-Hulk was made. We got that origin story in terms of the Intelligentsia building up to it and launching this plan. But what we learn is that all of this is tied into Doc Samson. Now, this is really cool because this is Jeff Loeb and Greg Pak reaching all the way back to the early days of Incredible Hulk stories and dragging it all in. And what they say is during his early time, when he was just like a PhD, Doc Samson or Leonard Samson had the idea of siphoning off gamma energy from the Incredible Hulk and then creating super soldiers out of it. Now, the first test subject was himself, and that's how Doc Samson got his powers. He literally created this thing called the cathexis machine. I don't know why they had to give it such a weird name, but the cathexis ray. And basically what it did is it channeled the abilities of Banner into himself, but the idea was to prove that it could be done. And if it could be done, then this could be manufactured on a massive scale and literally just create an army of super soldiers. The problem was that the machine was effectively destroyed, but the Intelligentsia were able to recreate it. What we also learn is that inside this duffel bag that Red Hulk brought with him was Deadpool. Yes, for all you guys, this is how Deadpool becomes a Hulk. So, Hulkpool is pretty badass, by the way. So, from here, it's really just kind of like an invasion of the helicarrier as it's operated by the Intelligentsia. But again, this just shows, this is why I said in the last few videos, intelligence beats strength every day of the week. Captain America is great at leadership. Thor is great when it comes to fighting. Carol Danvers is strong, but none of them are anywhere near their peak if they don't have an intelligent person to look out for traps to guide them to where they need to go. And the reason why we know this is because they stumble right into the trap, a guy named Trapster. As soon as they walk into a room, all the doors come slamming shut. And the result is that every last one of them are trapped. And so what they do is they basically, what we end up having anyway, is we have the cathexis machine, the C machine, we're gonna call it the C machine, essentially activating and taking the power of the Red Hulk and channeling it into everybody else. Now, this is where things begin to start making sense as well. And the reason why I say that is because when Red Hulk first showed up, and this is really what Hulk hypothesizes at this point anyway, but what he says is when the cathexis machine, the C machine, was used to basically give him his powers, he in turn went on a rampage. The idea was to capture Bruce Banner and to use Bruce Banner to make everybody else Hulks. But when Red Hulk kind of went off the reservation and attacked Bruce Banner and depowered him, it took away the Intelligentsia's ability to make everybody else Hulks. It took away their ability to basically see their plan to its fruition. And that's one of the reasons why they had sought out to kill him, because he had screwed up their plan as it was supposed to be executed. But then halfway through, the Intelligentsia said, wait a minute. If Red Hulk was able to depower the Incredible Hulk, if he was able to subdue Bruce Banner Hulk and depower him, then maybe there's more to Red Hulk than we initially thought. And so what they do is they say, let's let him loose. Just let him go do his thing. We'll just sit back and watch, and we'll let Red Hulk run around. We'll let him fight the Silver Surfer, absorb some of his energy. We'll let him fight all these different people, engage in these massive massive conflicts, build up his own stores of energy, and then when he's at his absolute peak, we'll let him come to us. And when he does, we will take him, we'll kidnap him, and we'll use him as the energy source to turn everybody into Hulks. And that's exactly what they do. The Fantastic Four, the Avengers, the X-Men, they're all turned into Hulks. Every last one. Now, of course, Deadpool jumps in, and this is where things get super cool. This is what I love so much about this. Deadpool injects some great humor into the story, because up until this point, it's been 100% serious. But it was a great way to throw him in, because literally Doc Samson starts messing around and says, hey man, whatever you do, Deadpool, whatever you do, don't tap that glass there that's already partially cracked. Like, don't do that. And Deadpool's like, yeah, man, I get what you're doing. Reverse psychology. Because if you tell me not to tap the glass, then I'll tap the glass. And so in order to defeat your reverse psychology, I'm gonna tap the glass. It's a line of logic that only makes sense in the mind of Deadpool. But of course, he's immersed in all these juices of Red Hulk. And in the process, Deadpool turns into a Hulk. And this actually leads into Hulked Out Heroes. It's really, really cool. It's part of the World War Hulks thing. It's pretty awesome. But we get Hulkpool. We get Deadpool as a Hulk. Now from here, it's literally, you know, the Avengers breaking their way out, or at least it seems like the Avengers breaking their way out. But once they get out, it turns out that it's basically Thor as a Hulk, Captain America as a Hulk, Carol Danvers, a whole 9 yards. Now, from here, we actually end up switching over to the perspective of Bruce Banner. And to be a little bit honest, I think this one's actually a bit better in terms of writing, storytelling, artistry, the whole 9 yards. Once Banner essentially breaks in, once he gets into the facility, you know, of course, he tells Red Hulk, hey, look, man, we're here, we're getting ready to start launching our attack. Now, once they get in there, of course, the first thing he does is he goes after Betty Ross, because that's his perspective. His goal here is to get Betty Ross, to get her to safety, but to also make sure that the intelligentsia are taken out. Now, what we're also shown here, and this is really kind of Greg Pak and Jeff Loeb messing with us as the reader, asking the question, is Bruce Banner just inherently insane? When he attacks Glenn Talbot using an EMP, because in the mind of Bruce Banner, if General Talbot is dead, then the only way General Talbot can be here is if he's a life model decoy, and life model decoys being made of machinery are disrupted by EMPs. And so the result of this is he steps up and he says, okay, we'll throw an EMP at him, we'll take him out. But then Glenn Talbot doesn't go down. And so this is really when Betty Ross looks at him and says, you've lost your mind, you're insane. You're so immersed in the fact that you want me back that you're not willing to look at things for what they are. She says, I'm with General Talbot, like I am part of him now. And so ultimately it's really left to the intelligentsia to try to grab up things as best they can, but it's also them keeping their plan alive. It's them keeping things going. And so again, this is the other half where Bruce Banner, you know, jumps in with the rest of the Avengers, begins attacking people. He also sends Amadeus Cho to grab Betty Ross. Now, this is where we actually run into this ruse, because this was never Glenn Talbot, or at least in the short term, this was never Glenn Talbot. This was Amadeus Cho. And so the idea was that Bruce Banner had been playing this game the entire time. Now, the reason why this works is because this shows us how deep all this runs. This shows us how long this game's been going on for. That Bruce Banner is pulling all these threats. Amadeus Cho has been acting as Colonel Talbot the entire time, that he's not a life model decoy, but Bruce Banner had to keep that perception alive in order to get Betty Ross to safety without her realizing he was trying to get her to safety. We have this scenario where it ends up being all these Avengers and all these X-Men doing the best they can to hold off as best they can. And so the result is that in the end, as Amadeus Cho is going through and trying to hack into the president's room in order to free Betty Ross, that it ends up turning out that the intelligentsia have all these soldiers on board. They have, like, you know, all these members of the US military, and they're in the process are going to be turning them into Hulks. And so because of all this, you know, of course, Red She-Hulk steps in. She ends up fighting against the son of Bruce Banner, you know, against Scar. And it's really just mass pandemonium and it's mass panic. But ultimately, Bruce Banner comes to the realization that the only way to basically save everything, the only way to keep all this going, is to effectively sit down and tell his son exactly what it is that's been happening. And he doesn't give him everything, but he goes as far as to say that, look, if I told you all the different plans that I had going right now, you would never trust me. If I told you that I'd basically use the Avengers, that I use the X-Men, and I use the Fantastic Four, all for the purpose of getting here and saving Betty Ross, then you would never believe me. Because in the mind of Bruce Banner, he's the last smart man alive. And this is really cool, because what Greg Pak and Jeff Loeb are telling us is that not all the smartest guys are good guys, that sometimes the heroes out there just get used by smart guys to achieve their own goals. And it tells us how much better off smart guys are, but there's also a yin and yang here. There's a give and take. Sure, Bruce Banner is super smart, but when he doesn't have the Incredible Hulk, what is he? Well, he's a guy that you can kill by shooting him in the back of the head without him ever knowing you were there in the first place. It's kind of the situation where both sides have something to offer. And so when he tells his son, look, you just have to trust me here. You just have to believe that I know what I'm doing, then Scar says, okay. And again, this is kind of like everything wrapping back around, everything coming to fruition, because remember, Scar did not trust Bruce Banner the first time he met him. He didn't believe that he was legitimate. When he fought him as the Incredible Hulk, he was like, you're nothing like the Worldbreaker form that I had heard. You're literally just a weak, empathetic, cowardly man who's hiding behind some green range monster that you can't control. And so the idea was, I don't want to have anything to do with you when Worldbreaker Hulk comes back. When Worldbreaker Hulk comes back, come get me, come find me. Show me that you're capable of going toe to toe, and then we'll just kind of take it from there. And so because of this, Banner says, okay, fine, we got to bring this whole thing crashing down then. Like, we got to destroy all this. We got to end all this. Not only that, the intelligentsia initially, like they basically launched their plan with Red Hulk, basically turning everybody into Hulks. And then Bruce Banner starts to realize what's going on. When he says, oh my God, they're turning everybody into Hulks using Red Hulk. So they basically outsmarted Banner. Banner didn't account for this. He didn't account for the fact that the intelligentsia were 5 steps ahead when Banner thought that he was 2 steps ahead. And so because of all this, Banner basically brought all of them to them. That's what the intelligentsia were working for. That was the ultimate goal. They realized that if they led Banner to believe that Betty Ross was alive, if Red Hulk believed, if he knew that Betty Ross was alive and told Bruce Banner that Betty Ross was alive, then Bruce Banner would go to the edge of the earth to find her. And so all they had to do was engineer a set of circumstances where Betty Ross was located where they were. All they had to do was kidnap some of the smartest people in the world, and it would have brought Banner directly to them. And so instead of chasing him around the world trying to find the last of all the smartest men, they just had to engineer circumstances where he would come to them. Not only would he come to them, he would bring them all the heroes of the Marvel Universe, which means they'd be able to use the Red Hulk and turn all of them into Hulks. And so quite literally, Banner, as one of the smartest people, used the superheroes, but Banner in turn was used by the intelligentsia to engineer their own plans. And the result is that Wolverine and Thor and War Machine, all these guys have all been transformed into Hulks. And so the cool thing here is what we do is we actually pick up a year later. And in this year later, we basically have Betty Ross and we have Bruce Banner back together, which is kind of a shock. And of course, Bruce Banner is having flashbacks to this major event that he was part of, this massive fight. And so that begs the question, okay, what happened, in this 1 year period? Well, what we end up learning is that this isn't real. Instead, Banner's been hooked up to the machine of the intelligentsia, and he's living in this virtual reality just like all the other people. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and bring this video to an end. If you guys are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button to become part of the Rob Core. If you guys enjoy this video, make sure you drop a like. And yeah, like I said, this is going to be the last of the Hulk videos until we come back from Christmas. After that, we're going to take it back to 1 day a week, I think on Tuesdays, and then Walking Dead will be back on Sundays. And I think the newest one's coming out on Sunday, now that I think about it. And yeah, so back to our regularly scheduled programming for you guys. Again, I just wanted to hammer out a whole bunch of Hulk stuff because I figured you guys would dig it as you guys were going into Christmas for those presents and dinners and after Christmas sales and all that kind of good stuff. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and bounce out of here and I will catch you all later. Peace.